Welcome once again to the Richard and Judy Book Club in partnership with WHSmith. And here it is. This is the first runner and rider in our new collection for the spring of 8. And The Postmistress by Sarah Blake deservedly leads the charge. It's a wonderful story. It's set in 1940. Europe is at war. It's been occupied by the Nazis. Britain stands alone. Alone because America is neutral. America won't come in to help. And that's kind of at the core of this story. It follows the lives of 3 women simultaneously. There's Frankie, a radio reporter who's based in London during the Blitz and is desperate to communicate to her compatriots back in America how important it is that they come in to our help. There's Emma, who's back in Cape Cod. She's a young wife of a young doctor. And in the same town is the eponymous postmistress, Iris. And they're all increasingly linked together. And Sarah's here now. Sarah, it's a wonderful story. Great beginning, great middle, fantastic end. What inspired you to write about such a specific era in our recent history?
Well, to be honest, I didn't actually start out thinking I was going to write a World War II novel. I kind of backed into it. The sort of immediate beginning was that I was living in a small town in Cape Cod, and I would watch the woman who delivered our mail every day, and I would think to myself, is she reading our postcards? Because she could, and does she have the secrets? And so I thought what I wanted to write was a book about a woman in a post office who didn't deliver a letter, and then what would happen. And you know, all kinds of possibilities rose to mind, but the first thing that I had to figure out is when would it take place, and I thought very cavalierly, I thought, well, I'll set it in World War II because losing a letter would matter. Absolutely. And then, but then the thing is, as happens, I think, a lot in historical fiction, is as I was starting to do research, there were so many tremendous stories that I sort of uncovered, and so that kind of developed the idea of the 3 women. But also, I had just moved to Washington, D.C. right before the September 11th attacks, and so for me, my own time was very much this period in America of a kind of gray area and an ambivalence about our position in the world. And so it's when I wanted to set it at a time before America entered World War II, because it wasn't at all, certainly in America, I don't think we had a sense of just how ambivalent America was. You know, I think now there's a sense of the war being the Great War and we did what we did, but I was curious about that kind of cloudy time before it became the good war.
The character of the postmistress, Iris, is fascinating. I love the way you open the book. You open her story where she's finally met, at the age of 40, she's finally met a man who she thinks is interested in her, and she's interested in him. She's a virgin, and she decides that she needs to get a proper doctor's certificate from Boston to explain that she is a virgin, which she will present to this man when they finally actually start to be together. That's extraordinary. How did you come up with that idea?
I do not. I mean, I don't know. I started. Iris for me was the first character who sprang to mind, and who I was writing, and I knew that she was somebody for whom order was sublime. You know, that there was a sense that everything in its place, and that was. That was the sort of perfect state. And so as I started to write her character, I wrote first her kind of in the post office, but then I actually just started writing a scene where she was in a doctor's office. I did not know what she was there to do until I was in the middle of the scene and she asks for this. And I'm literally writing it like, oh my God, this is so idiosyncratic and kind of nuts, but perfect. I mean,
but it's perfect for her because it really establishes her character. And when you start reading it, you think, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to like this woman. She is really weird. But then when she gets back to Cape Cod, she immediately kind of obviously becomes the focus of the whole town. I mean, she is the town, and you know that their safety, their contentment, everything, tiny and circular as it is, she's right at the middle, and that's why she's so important. Although it seems that Frankie's more important, the war reporter, really, but she's not.
She's not. I mean, I think that Frankie and Iris, in some senses, are 2 poles of this. When your world is upheaved, who are the kind of centers? What are these webs that that we're all kind of involved in? And Iris is very much keeping order, keeping things going in a world that's still at peace. And so she's very vital. Frankie, of course, is trying to get to the story beneath the story, get this sense of safety that's over in America. Get it to pay attention, to sort of see.
But how funny that the two of you see Iris as effectively the central character, and as she is eponymous, as I say. I thought Frankie was the most important figure in the book, possibly because I'm an ex-radio reporter myself, so I identified with her, and also because Ed Murrow, the real Ed Murrow, the real radio commentator who was in London during the Blitz and sent back historic broadcasts to America, you introduced him to the book. He's her boss in the book.
Yeah, yeah. Frankie, in some senses, is the dynamic force of the book. I mean, we move with her, and we move. I mean, the book does move back and forth on her broadcast, which was very fun to write. That the idea that these things can be going on simultaneously only happened because we hear Frankie, narrate something happening in front of her in London, and then it moves across the sea on the airwaves. And that sense of the kind of fragility of news, and yet its importance, was very much a part of radio reporting. I mean, I think radio is an amazing medium for telling really the news in a way that you don't have in print.
There is, of course, that amazing section of the book where Frankie is travelling through Europe, through Nazi-occupied Europe, allowed to because America is still officially neutral, which she gets very close to the bone, actually, several times in her broadcasts because she always had to have a German censor sitting close to her. It gets quite frighteningly close to her being arrested. But the stories that she uncovered as she travelled through train across Europe from these awful, poor, dispossessed, tragic families.
Jewish families. She basically, at that time, at the start of the war, people knew that the Jews were oppressed in Europe. But Frankie begins to suspect there's a lot more to it than that there's genocide going on. And she's right.
And it's organised.
Yeah.
And that's really what she, in the end, manages to get over. And finally means that from this little peaceful Cape Cod haven, we become more and more aware of America's potential involvement in the war and the threat to them as well, the threat to America as well. It's an absolutely fascinating book. I love it. It really is.
Thanks.
Yes, I found the section where Frankie goes travelling in Nazi-occupied Europe fascinating because she's walking through towns where the swastika's fluttering and there are Germans in uniform. And it's, as an Englishman, that's a really strange concept to think that, maybe 100 miles to the north of her, there's us, alone on the island at war. We've gone through the Battle of Britain, we're being bombed, and yet there's one of our future allies, an English-speaking American, walking around amongst German soldiers. Did that strike you as surreal?
It did, and it was also something that I really wanted to try and capture because I think, again, this trying to capture the time before, the sort of codified war that we have all in our imaginations. This strange time where it wasn't just set. And it wasn't very clear. It wasn't clear what was going to happen. It wasn't clear that the outcome was going to be the outcome. So.
Well, it's, as I say, our first book. It's The Postmistress. This is Sarah Blake. She is the one what wrote it, and it's a fabulous read. And if you want to comment on it and post your reviews and views, any kind of comments at all, go to the website, and that's whsmith.co.uk/Richard and Judy. Happy reading.